Is going on, everybody, and welcome to the Saturday edition of the Stochastic NHL Strategy Show. I am your host, Josh Harris. No baby on my lap. We do have King Bacon Pie with us, though. He'll probably jump off in a minute. But, nice little Saturday. So, I legit live in the middle of nowhere. People think New Jersey is just like the Newark airport. I was just at a farm with some dairy cows, and they had babies 36 hours ago. So we hung out with some baby cows this morning. So I smell like absolute crap. But we're here to talk about some hockey, not about the escapades of the life of rural Josh. Carolina not on the slate. To be able to extend some 4-game slates, the Islanders will have to extend that series. Don't think it's going to happen. Carolina is just a wagon. The Islanders suck. Rangers went up 3-0 last night. Washington's awful. I want to get excited about the Rangers, but Washington's just terrible. That Barclay Goodrow shorthanded goal was a microcosm of just how bad Washington is. They're giving no effort trying to get back. It's Barclay Goodrow skating. He's not a great skater. And these guys, 10 seconds into a power play, just gave up and let him score a shorthanded goal. That series is almost over. The East kind of sucks until the second round. That's when it's going to get good. We have 2 East Coast games or Eastern Conference games on this slate. We have Dallas, Vegas. That's going to be a fun game. I fell asleep early because I'm old and I missed the West Coast games yesterday, but Colorado, absolute wagon. They are running through the Jets like they're the Capitals or something. It's just insane. What did you think of the games yesterday?
Yeah, I unfortunately I had to watch Washington and the Rangers.
Just ugly game, man.
I mean, I think the Caps will be fine in a couple of years because they do have some pretty good prospects coming. Not guys that are just high in the organization, but guys that are just good prospects. It's just right now, they're more. Say what you want about Ovechkin. I don't think he's particularly good offensively at this point of his career. Their best offensive winger might be Sonny Milano. And I'm not saying that as a joke. I'm saying that quite seriously. It's just there's just not enough talent through the lineup. Nashville, Vancouver was interesting. Nashville, the second half of that game was all Nashville. It was one of those games where I don't know if there were skate blade marks in the Nashville end at any point in the third period. They were just hammering Vancouver. And for all the junk that we talked about Casey DeSmith, you got to kind of hand it to him. He won that game for him. It wasn't anybody else on that team necessarily playing well. Casey DeSmith won that game. So that was a big game for them. Colorado, Winnipeg. It's the power play, right? I think Winnipeg gave up 2 goals against at 5-on-3 in the third period yesterday. You have a 2-1 lead in the third period and you give them 2 separate 5-on-3s. What's a goalie to do? And as bad as the defense looked otherwise, at 5-on-5, it's been kind of okay. It's just, Colorado's power play basically won that game for them last night. And then Edmonton, Los Angeles, Edmonton has 7 power play goals in 3 games. We talked about it yesterday on the show. Edmonton's power play this season, including the playoffs against Los Angeles, was clipping along at almost 33%. And they just beat their brains in last night on the power play again. Again, this is one of those series where at 5-on-5, Los Angeles actually isn't playing that poorly. They're just the Edmonton power play is just overwhelming them. So Los Angeles is by no means out of that series, but any game where they give up more than 2 power plays to Edmonton is probably a game that they're going to lose. And it's just not looking great for them. So today's slate is kind of interesting in this sense. It's 3 games. FanDuel has a 4-game slate, but they only have 1 decent contest and not that worried about it. So it's a 3-game slate tonight. Florida, Tampa Bay. Florida has a chance to put away Tampa Bay with a 4-0 series sweep. So technically speaking, Florida could be in the second round before Dallas and Vegas play their 3rd game. I find that scheduling to be a little bit weird. But yeah, 3 very interesting games. There's some pretty big injury news in the both in the Toronto-Boston game and in the Dallas-Vegas game. We'll get to that. So could be a lot of moving pieces tonight, which kind of sucks because Florida and Tampa Bay, we basically know what those lineups are going to be, and especially with it being the first game to lock on the slate. So there could be some significant injury news with big impacts with 1/3 of the games already locked, or if not 2/3, considering Dallas-Vegas is the last one. So could be a good night for late swapping, depending on what we hear later on.
Yeah. And we do have a couple questions about Carolina Islanders. And just to hit on that briefly, like, I think Carolina wins this game. If the Islanders were to do anything, they really need Barzal and Horvat to come alive. So if you are on the Islanders, that would be where I would go. Like, I think the second line's fine because they kind of match up with the weakest defensive line, but they really need their big guys to go do stuff, and that's Horvat and Barzal. But like for me, it's Carolina 1, Carolina 3 again. You know what I mean? They're just super good. So like, you want to spend up for Carolina 1, go for it. You want a cheaper line, go Carolina 3. They are just like, if Jordan Stahl had any finishing ability, they would be an elite line. You know what I mean? So I do like the Carolina third line.
Yeah, I agree with you there. And also, speaking of Barzal and Horvat, in game 3, Patrick Waugh sent them into the Jordan Stahl line, like intentionally. I don't know, man. Like, I get what you're saying. Like, they need that Islanders line needs them to step up. And, you know, the Carolina goaltending has been a little shaky. Like, the Islanders haven't necessarily needed a lot of shots to get a few goals. If you're going to send them into the Jordan Stahl line, I just really don't like their chances of scoring. Yeah, I think that's kind of the problem. For me, I would be more on the depth of the Islanders. I think I would probably go back to the Lee Pajot Engvall line and use that as kind of like a filler for a Toronto power play stack, something from Tampa Bay or Florida. You know, maybe some expensive Dallas skaters, or Vegas, especially because like Jonathan Marchessault is still 8K on FanDuel. I think I would probably lean to the cheaper Islanders lines, but yeah, it's a Carolina game. I do really like the top line. Like, if the top line is not going to see, you know, a whole lot of shutdown matchups, it's not like there's great shutdown matchups on the Islanders anyway. I really do like Gensel, Aho, and Svechnikov as a main stack. But yeah, I think just in general, I'd be more apt to go look for 2-mans or one-offs amongst the third lines in particular from both teams than I would be to stack the top lines.
Yeah, agreed there. Let's hit up this 3-game main slate. Got any questions, you can throw them into the chat. We'll try to get them if we can. It's a little, you know, a little personal show, and we have like 25 people in here right now, so we have time. Florida Panthers with a 3.1 total. Heading into Tampa, the Lightning have a 3 total. We were kind of squabbling about this game this morning in DMs. John Cooper sending out their top line against the Barkov line. And I was kind of trying to make the argument, like, they don't really have a choice. Like, I get it. Like, they want to send out their best offensive line against, like, I get your perspective too. Like, you want them to be freed up against the depth of Florida. But at the same time, like, if they send out the Cirelli line or they send out the Paul line against the Tarasenko line, like, they're just going to get run over. And now I know Point, Kucherov, Hagel aren't, or
that's kind of my point, is like, they're getting their brains beaten all season long doing this. How much worse can it possibly get sending out Nick Paul and Michael Esamon?
Yeah, I know it's true, but like, I guess like the prevailing thought in Cooper's mind is like, oh, you know, Point and Kucherov are so good offensively that they can overcome the good defensive prowess. It's not working. You know what I mean? So like, yeah, they should change something here. They did mix up, they did flip-flop Hagel and Duclair here. Right? Hagel, yeah. And like, they had to do something, right? Duclair on that top line is just so high event. You throw Hagel up there, it's probably their best iteration of Tampa 1 that they can do. The issue is it's going to weaken their lineup. like Duclair going with Cirelli and Stamkos, that line's going to get absolutely just bombarded. So, like, from a Tampa standpoint, you see Tampa won with Hagel up there at 20,700, 32.2% top two stack, 16.7% projected ownership. Very high positive leverage, very expensive. They are at home. With them putting Hagel up there, it just screams to me that they're going to be going out against Barkov. And that's the issue, right? Like, even with Tarasenko there, the Barkov line is a wagon defensively. And it's just like, yeah, maybe Hagel makes them better defensively, but it's not going to be a change so drastic offensively because Kucherov and Pointer are elite offensively to the point where it's going to make a huge difference against Barkov. You know what I mean? So, like while I kind of get why Cooper is doing it for DFS purposes, it kind of takes me out on them. Tampa 2 with Duclair, Cirelli, Stamkos, 15-1, 9.4% top two stack, 14.8. Cirelli and Stamkos just don't work. Hagel couldn't even save them. And you throw Duclair there, who's just not great defensively. That line, I don't have much interest. It would be like a two-man of Paul Esamont. It'd probably where I'd be going for Tampa Bay. Now, do I really want to go there on this slate? Maybe not, because like there's not massive spend up options, right? Unless you're power play stacking Toronto, and then you end up like game stacking. But like Vegas isn't that expensive. Dallas isn't that expensive. You know what I mean? So like, yeah, one off Paul's fine because Florida's still taking a lot of penalties in the playoffs, and Paul's on the top power play. But like, I don't particularly love Tampa here, even with Hagel on the top line. I think, you get there in MME for the positive leverage, perfectly fine. But like in my single entry, why would I play Kucherov, Point, Hagel going into the teeth of Barkov when I can get Kachuk for Hagel, Lundell at 17-7 going into that Stamkos Cirelli line with Duclair there? You know what I mean? So like, I'm much more in on the Florida side here. You want to go Barkov, Reinhart, Tarasenko. I think that's fine. But with Hagel up there instead of Duclair, that top line is a bit more, there's more grit to them defensively is probably what I'd say. But what I do know is Cirelli and Stamkos don't work with Hagel there. You throw a bad defensive player like Duclair there, and they're going to get that for Hagel, Kachuk, Lundell. I don't care that Lundell's not great there. Like Verhaeghe and Kachuk have played extremely well this series. I'm very much in on Florida 2. I think Florida 3 is also fine. You don't need a full stack. Lusteran and Rodriguez, if you're looking to expensively power play stack something, is a fine two-man. This is a Florida game for me. Unless, we get into the game and Cooper changes the matching, which would suck like post-lock. But like the way he's doing this, it just takes me out on Tampa for DFS.
Yeah, I'll make the case for Tampa. Like, if I'm playing Tampa, the only two stacks I would consider are either the top line or a power play stack. Like, I'm not stacking the third or fourth lines. I don't think this is necessarily the spot for it. I think the case for Tampa is they send out that Kucherov line against Barkov for 5 straight shifts in the first period, and then basically got away from it until the last 10 minutes of the third, when, both lines were basically going out every other shift because Tampa was chasing the lead and Florida was protecting it. So while Kucherov still saw half his shifts against Barkov, which, like, I swear to God, I do not get it. It seemed like Cooper kind of learned his lesson towards the latter half of the first period, second period, start of the third, because they did start using the second and third lines, but then you're sending out Cirelli and Stamkos against them, which, oh my God. All this is to say, I'm not sure. Like, Kucherov and Point and Hagel play so much that they're going to see some of the Barkov matchup no matter what. But I do think it's a difference between seeing them be like 60% of the even strength shifts and like 20%, which is a lot because, that Florida top line has been really good defensively, even with Tarasenko there. Like, I didn't think they would be, but they are. 1.9 expected goals against, 2.4 actual goals against per 60 in the regular season. and they've been solid again in the playoffs. What I will say is that they have been high event. Kucherov and Point have been able to generate a little bit against them. They have been creating, like, the shot attempts are over 70 for Tampa 1 when they're on the ice against Barkov. Like, they just haven't really been able to break through yet. And as you mentioned, Florida's still taking a lot of penalties. Tampa Bay's had 12 power play opportunities in 3 games. Now, they've only scored twice. Florida's got a really good penalty kill. But if they can get, go like 2 for 5, which I know is asking a lot against a pretty good Florida PK, but 2 for 5, and then they get one at 5-on-5, and all of a sudden you're really in business. I think there is a case for going with Tampa 1, just because I'm not entirely, again, they're going to see some of the Barkov matchup. I think Cooper kind of got the message after the first period that, this is not a good idea. And that is my case for playing Tampa 1. I do think they're in play here in just about every kind of format. Tampa 2, I'm not in on. Like, if you want to one-off Stamkos, like, he does have 3 goals in 3 games. Like, he has half of Tampa's goals so far. I'm fine with that. If you want a 2-man Paul and Esmond or something, I'm fine with that. But as far as 3-man stacking goes, it's Tampa 1 or nothing. On the Florida side, there's obviously merit to playing both lines. And I wrote up the second line in the picks article today. Again, free to read over at Stokastic.com. Just head on over to the NHL section. Lundell and Tkachuk together, 125 minutes at 5-on-5, 35.5 shots, 3.8 goals per 60 minutes. So they were really productive offensively. Lundell has assists in back-to-back games. Now, he's not a big volume shooter, but honestly, when you're on a line with Matt Tkachuk and Carter Verhaeghe, you almost want a guy that would distribute the puck a little bit more than take the shots. And I think that's where he can be a little bit of an upgrade over Sam Bennett. So I do like Florida 2 here because they are reasonably priced. They're not coming – they're coming in with ownership. It's only a 3-game slate, but 16% against Tampa Bay I think is perfectly fine. I do think there's a case for playing Florida 1 here. I mean, there is a case anyway, but playing Florida 1 over Florida 2, one, not only is there less ownership, 11.6%, they're getting more ice time, right? Like, that is a big problem here for Florida 2, is that Verhaeghe and Tkachuk are Tkachuk played 17 minutes last game. Verhaeghe played a little bit more than that, but these guys aren't playing 21, 22 minutes. It's Reinhart and Barkov that are playing that much. And if you're going to take them, if Cooper does move away from the Kucherov matchup, then all of a sudden Barkov is going out against that Cirelli-Stamkos line. Cirelli and Stamkos without Hagel this season, 1.8 expected goals for, 2.6 expected goals against. They were just getting run over, 2.8 actual goals against per 60. I think there's a case to be made for both of the entire Florida top 6. I wrote up Florida 1 or Florida 2, the Tkachuk line, because they do have a lot of shot volume. I think there is a pretty good case for playing Florida 1 because they're going to see a lot of that Cirelli matchup, which is not a bad matchup at all. And they're getting 20, 21, 22 minutes of ice time. So I would probably go Florida 1 and then Florida 2 and then Tampa 1. But I think all 3 lines are definitely in play here.
Yeah, the one issue, it's not really an issue, but it's just I know he scored a 5-on-5 last game is Reinhart. You know what I mean? If they're not scoring on the power play, can he get you there? And he did last game. I don't know. Just it always feels like when there's goals involved, it's either one of Verhaeghe or Tkachuk is always involved in the goal. But
yeah, and I mean, I'd be perfectly fine. Leave Tarasenko off and put Tkachuk instead, and just make it a more expensive stack. I think that's perfectly fine as well.
Yeah, I mean, Tampa needs a win to extend the series, so
that's why I kind of like Tampa 1 as well. I can't imagine they lose this game and Kucherov plays 21 minutes and Point plays 19. I think no matter what, these guys are going to be playing 23, 24 minutes.
Yeah. And, Cooper would be smart to put him out against Lundell or
anybody but Alexander Barkov.
Yeah. You hope he learns his lesson, but you never know with these coaches. Speaking of these coaches, Sheldon Keefe, Boston Bruins with a 2.9 total heading into Toronto. The Leafs have a 3 total. Don't know if Willie Nylander is going to be back. They're talking like he's going to be back, but we honestly don't know. What is Clayton saying? Morning skate. Marchand, Coyle, Geeky, DeBrusque, Pasta, Zaka. Yeah. Van Riemsdyk, Frederick Heinen. Thank you, Clayton. He's doing it for me. He's not doing it for you.
I mean, you did have some visit. I get it.
Yeah. No, but like, yeah, that's what they ran last game. And that Marchand, Coyle, Geeky line really gave Toronto 2 some fits, to put it lightly. Like, okay, there are multiple lines I like in this game. I think my favorite one is still the Matthews line. Matthews, Bertuzzi, Domi. I know Matthews didn't have a great game the other night. He was sick, if you want to use an excuse. If you want to have, the Toronto fans' excuse. Oh, he got tackled and the ref didn't call it. Boo, 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 boo. Yeah, whatever. But no, again, like that line is just really, really good. They see a fair bit of the Zaka, DeBrusque, Pasternak line, and it's pretty good, but it's nothing Matthews can't handle. Second line, like they're coming in with a fair bit of negative leverage because of their price, 14.8. I don't think you need a full stack there. I think Tavares is an interesting one-off. I think Marner just doesn't look good. So I think a Tavares one-off would probably be what I would do from Toronto too, or add him into a Matthews stack or something like that. If Nylander's out, you could do like a Matthews, Tavares, Bertuzzi power play stack, something like that. I don't know if Nylander's going to be in. If he is in, I think he's a decent one-off. But it would be Toronto one for me. On the Boston side, like Pasternak one-off, always perfectly Gucci. You know what I mean? Like I'm fine with Zaka, Pasternak, 2-man. You want to full stack them. Cool. But I do like Boston 2 here. They're fully correlated. They're 13,100. They're coming in with less ownership than Boston 1. And they are going to be facing Tavares, Marner, Nyes a bunch. And that line just has not been good this series. Like, they just haven't. So, I don't know if I'll get to Marchand, Coyle, Geeky as a full stack in single entry, but I have no issue with one-offing Geeky, one-offing Marchand, you know what I mean, in your single entry lineup. So, it would be Toronto 1 for me, and then Boston 2.
Here's a hypothetical. Nylander plays tonight. Let's say he plays. He's in on the third line with Pontus Holmberg and Calle Jarnkrok, which, like, just very quickly, I was looking at some of the tracking data from all three zones. Both Holmberg and Jarnkrok, bad on zone entries, bad playmaking. Like, Nylander literally has to do it all himself if he does play with them. But that's neither here nor there. I mean, it is important. But let's say he does play. Boston gets a goal 10 minutes into the game. Time's winding down in the first period. How long is it until the second line is Nylander, Marner, Tavares, or Nylander, Marner just swap and Marner goes down to the third line?
I think it's a fair bet if Nylander plays.
That's what I'm thinking. Now it certainly seems like Nylander's trending to playing. The nice thing is like if you do want to gamble and put like a Tavares, Nylander, Nyes stack together or something like that, and Nylander doesn't play, Marner's $1,000 cheaper, so you can just swap down. Like now you're leaving money on the table, but maybe you have a defenseman you can improve after that, or a goaltender. Like there are ways to kind of just not leave a ton of salary. So I think there are options here. I worry about Nylander just coming in on the third line and staying there all game because neither Holmberg nor Jarnkrok are like, I would even call them average NHL offensive players. Like these guys are there for their defense, and I don't know why you would put them with William Nylander. Like, they can dig some pucks or something, but he has nobody to pass to. He has nobody to kind of play off of. So I think there is merit to playing Nylander here tonight because he will be low owned because he's got that tag next to his name. Nobody's sure if he's going to play. One of the games will already be locked. But the thing, like I said, the thing is like you can swap down from Nylander to Marner if you want to. You can go from Nylander to Jason Robertson, who's $800 cheaper, plays in the later game. Like, there are options. So I do think there's merit to playing Nylander. It just really sucks that he's going to be starting on a third line with basically no help offensively. I wrote up Toronto 1 in the picks article. I know people like to bag on Toronto. We love to bag on Toronto. That line was really, really good at the end of the season. Bertuzzi, Domi, Matthews creating a lot of goals, a lot of shots. And it's been the same thing in the playoffs. 32-17 at 5-on-5 together, 26 shots, 12 high danger attempts, and 3 goals. If you pace those out for 60 minutes, those are huge offensive numbers. The problem is the power play. I think the power play is 1 for 11 or 1 for 12. If they're like 3 for 12 or something like that, this series looks a lot different, and their offensive numbers look a lot different. Now, if Nylander's back, that pushes Bertuzzi off the power play, which would suck. But that line's not super expensive, and Bertuzzi and Domi are not priced at a point. I make this point in the article. They're not priced as if they're going to be playing 19 minutes with top power play time, right? They're basically priced as middle 6 forwards that are going to get 14 minutes. So I really do like Toronto 1 here. Toronto 2. I wrote up Tavares because he has been shooting, and I do think he is a good option on the power play for them. They got to get him away from Marner. Like, Marner's just killing him. Like, I know Marner had a nice pass in that last game, and if you can do that a few times a game, that'll really help. But he's just not looked good since returning from injury at the end of the regular season. So basically, for me, it's Toronto 1, maybe like a Tavares one-off or a Nylander one-off if you want to gamble with that. But for a full stack, it's Toronto 1. On the Boston side, I kind of agree with you on that Marchand line. Like, Pasternak is shooting, but he's not getting a lot of ice time. Like, nobody on Boston's really getting any ice time. No forward is averaging over 19 minutes a game. That's kind of the problem. So, like, do I really want to play David Pasternak if he's, regardless of the score, if he's going to play 17 or 17 and a half minutes? Like, I honestly think I'd just rather go play Kucherov or something at that point. So, yes, I agree. Geeky, Marchand, and Charlie Coyle. Geeky and Marchand have good offensive numbers together this season. 65 shot attempts, 3.3 expected goals per 60 minutes. Like, it's not a big sample. It's under 100 minutes, but it's a good start. Geeky getting power play time. They're not super expensive. You brought up their top 2 stack percentage. It's not super high, but 12%. They're a good stack that if you want to put in with like a Tampa Bay 1 or a Vegas power play stack or something like that, I think Boston 2 makes a lot of sense. I will say Boston 3 makes some sense. Frederick and James Van Riemsdyk also have good offensive numbers, 3.2 expected goals in 360 minutes together this season, so about 35 games worth of ice time. I thought JVR looked good in game 3 as well. Like, I mean, it's the Leafs defense, but he beat one defenseman for a partial breakaway, and then on another partial breakaway, he ripped one off the post from about 30 feet. Like, he looked like the JVR of 10 years ago when he was in Toronto. Phenomenal. But the problem is, like, unless you're basically Tampa power play stacking, there's no real reason to get that cheap. So I think for me, it's Toronto 1, Boston 2, and then one-offs besides that, like a Heinen one-off or a JVR one-off, I think is fine. Geeky one-off, I think is fine. Nylander, Tavares, those types of things.
Yeah, go Bruins. Dallas Stars with a 3 total heading into Vegas. The Golden Knights also have a 3 total. This game's interesting from many facets. Interesting question there in chat. How Dallas finished their lines when Marchman got hurt is interesting because they went Robertson, Hintz, Wyatt Johnston, then Ben, Duchesne, Stankov, and then Pavelski, Sagan, Dadonov. They called up Maverick Bourque, which is another name that couldn't be on any other team besides the Dallas Stars. Maverick Bourque is not in the player pool. Whether he just slides into Dadonov's spot and they go Pavelski, Sagan, Bourque, or they go back to old Dallas 1 and then they just slide Bourque into Marchman's spot. That's the issue, right? Because I would have a lot of interest if they ran back Robertson, Hintz, Johnson. The numbers Dallas 1 has without Pavelski are just insane. You throw Wyatt Johnson into the mix, and they're just absolutely playing with gas. You know what I mean? So I would have a lot of interest in Robertson, Hintz, Johnson. I would also have interest in Ben, Duchesne, Stankov, and we just don't know. And unless the coach speaks, Or do they run lines in morning skate, which won't happen for another 2 hours? It's kind of hard to break down the Dallas side here because they could easily just go back to Hintz, Robertson, Pavelski, and then Ben, Wyatt Johnston, Stankoven, and then make the third line Sagan, Duchesne, Bork, right? And then I would have interest in going back to Wyatt Johnston, Ben, and Stankoven. But, like, I don't know. So it's kind of hard to break down Dallas here. And that kind of impacts Vegas, right? Because Robertson, Hintz, Wyatt Johnston would take me off the hurdle line, right? If they go back to Pavelski, I'd have some interest in Hurdle, Stevenson, Stone. As it is, I do have interest in Eichel, Marchessault, Barbashev. It's just there's so many questions in this game, and it's a 10:30 lock, and there's nothing after it. So if you are considering people from this game, I would try to give yourself some swappability. I don't even know if that's a word, but we're going to make it one of like, yeah, you can put in like an expensive defenseman, like the most, like you could put in, I don't even know, like Shea Theodore.
The easy thing is just to make sure that one, because Hintz, Robertson, Johnson is a double center on DraftKings. Just make sure one of the centers is in the utility because Johnston is $100 more expensive than Pavelski. So if they just go back to Robertson and Pavelski, you can just stack that line.
Yeah. It's just the way Dallas runs their lines impacts both sides. So it's like it's hard to really break down this game unless we have definitive lines, which we don't, and we may not get until 10 p.m. Eastern.
Yeah, I agree. And also, I'm not sure how Vegas is going to match either, because before Stone got hurt, they were using Stone in the shutdown matchup and to varying degrees of success, let's say.
Yeah.
Now, maybe adding Thomas Hertl wants them to keep doing that, right? Then they can free up Jack Eichel against the depth matchups, which is something that the Eichel, Marchessault, Barbashev line could exploit. I imagine they keep using Mark Stone in a shutdown matchup. I was looking at our buddy Quick Party, who does line matching service on Twitter. That's something outside of Stochastic that you and I use. He does have Hertl, Stone, and Stevenson going out against the Dallas top line as well. So assuming that's the case, I think that favors the Dallas top line. That's why I do have, honestly, I'd rather have Wyatt Johnston there from a DFS perspective, because you're right. The top line for Dallas in their minutes without Pavelski this season, 91 shot attempts, 4.4 expected goals, 4.8 actual goals per 60 minutes. Like when you said nitrous, just unbelievably good offensively. And I think they can really do damage against that Mark Stone, Chandler Stevenson, Thomas Hertl line. That line hasn't really played that well. They've been very opportunistic. It's only been 2 games. I wouldn't read a whole lot into it. I think it's a matchup that can favor Dallas 1. So I do like the idea of having Hintz, Robertson, Johnston in my lineup with either Hintz or Johnston as the utility. And then if I have to, I can swap off whoever's in the utility to Pavelski if we get something different in warmups. It's just an easy swap to make on DraftKings. So that's where I am on that side. I would have interest in a Duchesne, Stankoven, Ben line. But honestly, like once it's not really a great matchup going up against Eichel. Stankoven's not really getting a ton of ice time. At that point, they're not perfectly correlated on the power play. Other than Dallas 1, I would be interested in one-offs. Like I think a one-off Ben is certainly fine. I think a one-off Matt Duchesne is certainly fine. But I think if I'm stacking from Dallas, I'm stacking the top line. I'm putting Johnston or Hintz in the utility. And then if I have to swap down to Pavelski, then I just do that. So that's where I am on the Dallas side. On the Vegas side, it's the Eichel line. What worries me is the power play, right? Like you only have Eichel on the top line from the top power play unit, and the top power play unit is getting, I think it's 80% of the power play time so far in the 2 games. Now, there have only been 6 total power plays between the 2 teams, so I'm not overly concerned about it. But the fact that Vegas top line is not getting a ton of ownership is what's really interesting me. 9.1% ownership, 14.3% top two stack percentage. Despite their performance on the power play thus far, it's not a good power play matchup for Vegas per se, because Dallas doesn't take a lot of penalties and they usually have a really good penalty kill. So I think it's both top lines I like here, and I would leave Wyatt Johnston in my lineup for the Dallas top line and then just swap down to Pavelski if I wanted. Other than that, it would be one-offs. One-off Ben, one-off Duchesne, one-off William Karlsson, those types of things. I think this is a game where I'm focusing on the top lines. And honestly, just across this slate in general, I'm not a fan of the third and fourth lines just because there are so many lines under 20K that you don't really need them.
Yeah, and Dallas lost both games at home. So, like, obviously we're not the coach, but, like, you need to make a little bit of an adjustment. I would imagine Wyatt Johnston's up there tonight. But, yeah, we'll see. Hopefully we get lines in a few hours at morning skate, but I'm not going to hold my breath. Of course, it's the 10:30 game that has the most news. You know what I mean? It always happens that way.
Yeah.
For anyone who plays NBA, you know. Let's talk about defenseman here. The most expensive defenseman is $5,500 tonight. So it's like, okay. And it's probably like, I don't even know who my favorite one. Like Miro Heiskanen has been playing so many minutes, and he's actually been getting peripherals. I like him. Noah Hannafin, obviously, at 4,800. He's been playing good minutes. He's running the top power play for Vegas. Montour came alive in the last game. Like, I think any of these guys are in play, but just because there's no one like 8,200 like McCarr that's going to be so price prohibitive that you can't fit them. You know what I mean? But I think it would be McAvoy, Montour, Heiskanen, and Hannafin would be the four that I like the best.
Yeah, I have Hannafin number one just because he is getting 23 minutes plus top power play time. Like, that's still worth something, even though I don't think it's a great power play matchup. Montour number two. I have Hedman number three. Like, I do. It's still a, quote, good power play matchup for Tampa Bay. Tampa Bay was the number one power play in the league this season, like better than Edmonton and Colorado by a goal per minute basis. So if Florida keeps giving them 4 or 5 power plays or whatever, even 6, I think in the last game, I do think Tampa Bay breaks through eventually. So I do like Hedman. Cheaper defenseman like Aaron Ekblad, 3,600. His projection for ownership is, I think, under 5% on both sites. It's certainly under 10%. Yeah. So even though like there's not a necessity to necessarily pay down, but 3,600 for Aaron Ekblad in a matchup where he might have to block a lot of shots on the PK, I do like him. Chris Tanev, kind of the same thing for Dallas. A little bit less ice time. He's also more aggressive offensively than Esa Lindell. Like, he will actually jump up into the play where Lindell won't do that as much. So I do like Tanev over Lindell. Braden McNabb for Vegas. Like, Vegas is giving up shots, and McNabb's getting ice time. He might have to block some as well. Joel Edmondson, if you need a stone min punt, 2,500, I think is perfectly fine. Parker Wotherspoon from Boston, 2,500, I think is perfectly fine. And Nico Mikkola from Florida, 2,800, getting over 20 minutes, good penalty kill time. I think those are the 3 guys for under 3K on DraftKings I'd be looking to.
Yeah, Joel has been averaging like 19 minutes this series too, and he has 9 block shots in 3 games. So he don't shoot the puck much, but you know, if you get that block bonus and maybe he dunks a secondary assist, you're cooking with gas at min price. You know what I mean? Goalies, no one above 8,000. Still hate everybody. But like, I know Jake Ottinger has lost 2 games in a row, but going back to him at 7,400, I'm interested there. If Tampa wants to extend the series, not only does their offense have to wake up, but Vasilevsky needs to be better. I think at 7,200, I think he's the cheapest goalie on the slate. He needs to wake it up there. If I'm spending up, It's probably Bob, right? If like the issue I have is like Tampa just doesn't shoot a lot, but like the goalie scores in the playoffs haven't been great. I think, like we haven't seen a slate breaking goalie performance. Like I don't mind going back to Logan Thompson, but like I think it would be Bob. Oh, and sorry, I missed whoever's starting for Boston. That's the guy who I really like. Like I think they should go back to Swayman. He was on one the last game. I hope they start Swayman. He was the first goalie off. And if it is Swayman, I like Swayman, but I don't mind going back to Ottinger or Vasilevsky here tonight.
Yeah, my number one goalie is whoever starts for Boston. I put in Allmark in the picks article just because they have been rotating. I would also go back with Swayman, but I'm not the coach. Whoever starts for Boston is number one for me. I have Logan Thompson number two. Because Vegas is giving up shots, man. Like I don't know what else to say. Dallas, they're not. Vegas isn't terrible defensively. But they're giving up 67 shot attempts against per 60. It's the fourth most of any team in the playoffs thus far. So Logan Thompson probably could see good volume again. And yeah, I agree with Vasilevsky. I made that mistake with Charlie Lindgren yesterday. He didn't have a very good game, but again, Tampa wants to stay in. Vasilevsky probably has to keep it to at least 3 or less, if not 2. So I don't mind Vasilevsky if you're paying all the way down, but Allmark and Thompson are 1 and 2 for me.
Like the thing with Vasilevsky, and when it's 3-0, right? Tampa's going to have to take some chances with pinching, especially if it's a close game.
How is that really different from any other of their games?
Yeah, but the thing is, like, Florida's already a pretty high volume team. Like, if it's like a 2-1 game and Tampa's down late in the third, they're going to have to really, push it. And you're going to see a bunch of odd man rushes the other way, and you just hope Vasilevsky can hang in there.
Yeah.
Who you liking for your hat trick pick?
Chalk hasn't been working out, so I'm going way off the board with this one. I'm going with James Van Riemsdyk.
That would be so fucking funny.
James Van Riemsdyk scoring a playoff hat trick in Toronto. It'd be the best thing to happen in my life.
I am on board for that. I am going. I'm going to go a little bit chalky, and I hope he's on the top line. I'm going to go Wyatt Johnston.
Oh, I like it. We're a Dallas Stars fan. I got my Dallas Stars jersey on. Go Stars! Go.
I have New York Jets. I'll just cower. But yeah, they suck. But we will be back Tuesday. Most likely that will be our last show of the season. So we'll make an announcement on that. So make sure you tune in for the last official show of the season, regular season and playoffs. And good luck, everybody, tonight. Hopefully we get some Stars news. If we don't, it could be to your benefit ownership-wise at 10 p.m. Eastern. So good luck, everybody, tonight.
Good luck tonight, everyone.